housewives.
Hey, welcome back.
Welcome back, housewives. We are here again, and we have got a little different setup here for you. Again, we are at separate locations, but technology is amazing. And so with Tracy at her house, and then me, in the living slash dining slash
Living studio.
podcast, living studio. Yeah, we live with that. So here we are. So thank God for technology. So, but we have an amazing guest for you today, and I'm going to have Tracy
Mhm.
introduce her.
Yes. Well, today we have Emma Donaldson with us. She is a licensed professional counselor and perinatal mental health specialist who supports Christian moms in the postpartum season. She helps new mothers understand postpartum anxiety and depression, emotional overwhelm, and intrusive thoughts, offering support that honors both their mental health and their faith. All right. Welcome to the show, Emma.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. You guys are fantastic. We've already just been cutting it up. So I'm excited to do this with y'all.
Exactly. Now we're going to
Yeah,
be completely serious and no more funniness. Like,
right. Just
cut it all
Straight
out.
business.
it just doesn't work with
Straight,
us. Just
yeah,
doesn't.
exactly. Straight business. He says no one ever. Oh man. Okay, remind me. Did we connect with you on Podmatch? Was that one?
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay,
we
we
did.
have
Yes.
we have to give another shout out to Podmatch because, oh my gosh, Podmatch has just been the greatest connector for us.
Mhm.
And not only are we so thankful for the opportunity to be on Podmatch's network, but also the fact that we get to meet amazing guests like yourself. And so, if anybody else is listening and is thinking, like, you've got a podcast with guests, check it out because Podmatch saves us so much time as hosts that we get to enjoy so much
Mhm.
more. I mean, for every guest we used to have to schedule to interview, we'd have to do 3 or 4 hours of background work. And now it's
Mhm.
like Podmatch saves us all of that time and we get to do more interviews and more talking and more episodes. And that has been such a game changer. So I just want to give a shout out to Podmatch. Link is in the show notes if that's something you're interested in.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
We'll start with that. Start, Emma, by introducing to our listeners a little bit about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am Emma. I live in Georgia. I'm a wife and mom of three very small children whom I love so much and keep me on my toes, keep me humble. I'm also a licensed counselor, so that's what I do for work. And I love it. It's great. It's one of those professions that when I first got into it, I thought I'm going to, see a ton of clients every week and I'm going to build a private practice and do all of the things. Never envisioned being a stay at home mom or staying home part time with my kids until I had my first child. And then I was like, "You're so cute. I can't leave you." Like it just was like, maybe I don't. Well, I do want to work. How can I? So, anyway, it was just God's provision in matching me with this career because it's one that can be very flexible. I was able to shift
Mhm.
from working several days a week to dropping down to a couple days a week. So, I was able to kind of do a hybrid model while my kids were like very small, like baby age. So, I could be home with them
Mhm.
more. So, it's great. I love it. 3 days a week, I'm on and in therapist mode. And then the other days, I get to be with my kids. Then it's awesome. It's a great balance.
That's awesome. Now, this space, when you are helping the postpartum mom mental thing, that was a space that you entered into before you became a mom, correct?
No, actually, I was a
Okay, so
trauma
this is after the
therapist.
fact. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So I was a counselor before I became a mom, but I specialized in trauma for several years and was a part of a great group practice where I saw clients who oftentimes had childhood trauma. So they were adults recovering from that. And that was great. I felt like I had the capacity for it. And then I became a mom and it started to weigh on me a little bit differently than it did before. I think that's one of those things about motherhood is your emotional bandwidth, it gets stretched, right?
Yep. Mhm.
More people needing you. And so I noticed that shift for me personally. But then also, I also noticed like I was starting to just experience more anxiety and was checking the monitor a lot and was making sure baby was breathing and just started to pick up these, kind of quirky things. And I remember bouncing it around to some mom friends, even friends that were therapists already. And they're like, oh, yeah, just kind of how it is. Yeah, you have think about your child falling down the stairs all the time. Just kind of how it is. Yeah, you just want to, it's mom gut. Like I heard a lot of it normalized. But it got to the point for me where I was like, I just don't think this is normal. I don't feel like I'm functioning the way that I want to function. I feel like I'm on high alert all the time.
Mhm.
And this feels different from generalized anxiety. It seems to be all specific to my child. And so anyway, I was already in therapy at the time myself and was able to work through some of it with my own counselor. But I really started to get into this. I think there's something specific about right after you have a baby, this postpartum phase. And so I was like, I'm going to learn more about it. So I found a couple books. I found a couple continuing education courses to take. That led me to finding like a certification so I could get certified in it and bring that into my counseling practice. And that's when I started to shift seeing pregnant and postpartum women and then seeing couples where the wife was either pregnant or postpartum. Because I think a lot of amazing therapists can miss that. They may be
Mhm.
able to identify other things that are going on with a client, but if they're not trained to think about the postpartum brain and the pregnancy brain, or they might use their own experience and chalk it up to be like, this is kind of how it is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so, I wanted to be able to like do that well for my people. And so yeah, transitioned into seeing all of that for my clients, opened up my own
Mhm.
practice 3 years ago and been doing it ever since.
Wow.
That's
That's
awesome.
incredible.
Do you do telehealth as well?
I do. I'm actually only telehealth right now. So I went
Okay.
from
Okay.
seeing both in person to telehealth to now completely virtual. And to be honest with you, I've had clients tell me like, whenever you do go back to seeing people in person, I'm not going to come see you because it's just too convenient to do the
Mhm.
telehealth, especially for new moms who are
Right.
already working around nap schedules and all the things. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
That's
what a blessing for both of you, like your job and the new mom to like still be able to get service, but it's okay. I have an hour nap time, or my husband gets home and this works and can hop on a call. That's actually really awesome.
This is just something that COVID, I mean, it seriously brought out like when while I don't think I want to see a professional for a sore throat, like via telehealth, that seems
Mhm.
dumb to me. But like
Yeah.
having a counseling session, that's like, oh, okay. These are things that we can talk through and I can say, but versus, a doctor just saying, well, I think you have strep. Well, gee, thanks. That, it isn't, it's dumb. But technology is definitely amazing. Again, the fact that we're
Mhm.
tracing our less than 5 minutes apart from each other and we're in recording mode.
Yeah.
Still can make it
It's
happen.
so great.
Incredible.
So,
So thankful for that technology.
yes. Okay, so what now part of this is hormones, right?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
I know we discussed when we had our little meet and greet episode or moment with you, we
Yeah.
discussed part of it being hormonal. How do you work through that with new moms or, pregnancy? Because it's like the hormones aren't the same. I mean, they just shift over and over. Like,
Yeah.
how do you kind of work through the hormonal piece of that with the moms?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. So actually, like one of the biggest hormonal drops that we experience as women happens at that postpartum period, or right after the baby is born. And so I think it's like 80% of new moms will experience what we call baby blues, which is different than
Mhm.
postpartum depression. It's them crying for what feels like no reason.
Mhm.
Feeling really low, feeling really down, not feeling connected. It can really mimic those symptoms of postpartum depression. But we know it's different because oftentimes the onset is like 3 to 5 days postpartum, and that will tend to clear up on its own around 2, 3 weeks max postpartum. And so being able to even just normalize that and tell like a client that I'm working with while she's pregnant, it is likely that this will happen to you. And if it does, it is largely driven by hormones. It doesn't feel any better, but at least you know that you're not, crazy. You're not going crazy. Nothing
Mhm.
is terribly wrong with you. It's natural. And we want to like make sure that you have margin in place so that you can care for yourself well during that time. Maybe that's not the time that you want to have, 10 visitors over at your house to meet the baby. If you feel like you're sobbing and you're still in your diaper, that might not be the time. And that's okay.
Mhm.
And I think that permission piece is really important because, and I'm
Yes.
sure you guys know this as moms, especially when it's your first, you have your expectations for what you want, and you have family and their expectations, you have friends and their expectations. And a lot of times it's very reactive. It's, well, I feel like I have to just do what everyone around me is
Mhm.
saying I'm supposed to do or I want to do. And so then they step it. They have those emotional experiences, like I said, that are largely hormone driven. And then things get exponentially worse. So I think that's one piece of it. I think the other hormonal piece is even though that's the biggest drop, that doesn't mean that your hormones have gone back to quote unquote normal or baseline after that. They're still doing their thing, working out, especially if you're breastfeeding too. Lots of ups and downs there. the sleep deprivation that impacts your hormones.
Mhm.
Um, and so seeing some moms like 4 or 5 months postpartum, their expectation of I should feel this way is so far from the reality of what their hormones are at.
Yeah.
And being having someone say, yeah, it makes sense why you still feel like you're on the struggle bus because you are, can be
Well,
just a huge sense of relief.
I think it's so crazy how many appointments you have, right, in your
Yeah.
prenatal, like pregnancy and prenatal appointments, you have all of them. And very rarely, I mean, I had 4 kids, and I don't think I was ever talked to about how I would feel after I had the baby. There's
Yes.
no preparation about what you're going to feel with the baby blues or the postpartum or the sleep
Mhm.
deprivation. And I remember it being, and again, this was like, a decade ago and
Yeah.
before, but there wasn't as much conversation around like being a mom that feels this way, that
Yeah.
has anxiety and depression and all that. It was almost taboo to
Mhm.
say it because you're like, oh, you should be grateful that you have a baby, a healthy baby, and all the things. And you're like, I remember when I went through it. I had postpartum twice with my four.
Mhm.
And both circumstances were very much that, like the expectations that like everybody else puts on you that you put on yourself, and socially, culturally, whatever you want to say. And then
Totally.
going, wait, maybe I'm the crazy one. Maybe something's
Mhm.
wrong with me. And so I was someone who I really struggled with it. And I thought I was like, I was going to be natural. It was going to be natural to take
Mhm.
care of it. I
Mhm.
loved kids. I loved babies.
Mhm.
But little did I know how much my hormones would go all over the place because it absolutely was for me because I'd be fine and then I wouldn't be fine. I'm like, I haven't done anything different. I'm sleeping, I'm
Right.
eating, so wrapped up in it. And I remember those feelings like it was yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, because it sticks with you, and I think in addition to the hormones, it's also your nervous system. It's being
Hmm.
rewired, to care for this very small, helpless little person, which is how God
Yeah.
designed it. So it's good. But I think when we don't honor that newborn bubble and we try to throw things into the mix too quickly, or we try to jump back into routines, our nervous system experiences that as this is unsafe, this is stressful. And then we
Hmm.
continue to like ignore it because we're like, I got to do the things. And it's kind of like a vicious cycle. And I think, particularly for Christian women, I think it can be even harder for some of the reasons that you just mentioned, Tracy. Okay, this is a blessing and I need to be grateful. And some of this over spiritualized language can get thrown
Hmm.
in. And I think too, even like your community trying to be helpful, wanting to encourage you, not knowing quite how, and using language like, well, just be grateful that they're sleeping as long as they are, or just be grateful that your
Hmm.
baby's healthy, which makes you feel worse, which leads
Oh
to
yeah.
continuing to shut down, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. That shame.
Yeah, that very much that feeling of, "Oh my gosh, I feel crazy," and then trying to voice that to somebody, and then also that because you hear the horror stories, right, of the moms that are going through the postpartum depression and then end up hurting their children, God
Yeah.
forbid,
Yeah.
and so you're like, if I don't want somebody to think that for a second that I could possibly do that, so you're almost like,
Yes.
I don't want them to think that I'm that crazy, like, "Should I leave can I
Hmm.
leave you alone with a baby?" Of course you
Yeah.
can. I don't wanna hurt myself, and I don't wanna hurt them, but I feel like I'm just
Yeah.
slowly I don't know, I mean, it's just the feeling of your skin. I mean, it was just one of those things that I remember in particular, like, calling husband, Andrew, and just being like, "I feel crazy. I feel crazy." And
Mhm.
he's like, "You're not.
Mhm.
It's okay."
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah.
too, when moms I think the other thing is that we don't give ourselves grace for is the having babies back to back. Like,
Mhm.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I was an only child, so I have no concept of what siblings are. And so my girls are 17 months apart. And so when you're 6 months postpartum and you're pregnant again, it's like,
Yeah.
whoa, your whole body and you're nursing and you're trying to figure out that. And you're like, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, I have a six. I've never changed
Mhm.
a diaper before my first child. Anyways, this is
Yeah.
like a whole thing. There's so many factors that we just don't give ourselves grace for.
It's so overwhelming, so overwhelming, and I think there's this lie that we, like, have to do it by ourselves in order to prove that we're doing a good job or we're a good mom,
Hmm.
and so, yeah, we have those close age gaps, and we're praised for getting out to Target the soonest with our like,
Hmm.
hobbling with our stroller and our toddler walking along, and I call it, like, the supermom myth of if we can celebrate that of doing it by yourself and doing it with a smile on your face and not sharing that you're
Hmm.
struggling, that somehow earns you a badge, and I mean, it's pervasive. I think it's everywhere. How could we not believe that? But it couldn't be more detrimental. There's something you said, Tori, that I wanted to go back to about making sure that no one thinks that you're not safe with the baby if you share like how you're really
Mhm.
doing. I find that a lot with women who experience intrusive thoughts postpartum, which happens all the time. It's so, so, so common where they will envision themselves hurting the baby and they're horrified by that thought. They're like, I don't want to do that. Why would my brain give me this image?
Mhm.
And they're not knowing that it is an intrusive thought, meaning it's unwanted. They don't want it to be there. It's not a
Right.
desire. It's not something that they want to act upon, but they're so scared to tell someone because they're like, someone's going to take my kid from me or they're going to think I'm unfit.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so they continue to struggle with those intrusive thoughts and just feel tortured on the inside, right? For however long. And it's awful. It's awful. And
Mhm.
that's one of the reasons why it was actually the end of 2024. Still doing my counseling practice, but I was like, golly, I just wish I could meet women outside of the counseling room with some of this information because a lot of the times I feel like I'm saying kind of the same thing. And is there a way for
Mhm.
me to share this in a different way or in like a broader way that wouldn't be counseling, but would still be like mental health informed from a Christian perspective? And so I had a couple different iterations of like how to do that. That's one of the reasons why I created Joyful Mama Mental Wellness, which is essentially that's the mission, right? Is to reach women who are postpartum pregnant for their mental health outside of a counseling situation in like an educational and supportive way. But I was like, how can I do this? And the more that I talked to more women, the more I was like, they need the information, one. And then two, they
Mhm.
need like the support. They need the support that is mental health informed and then also still integrating their faith because that's a big piece. They're not wanting
Yeah.
to be talked out of what they believe, but they're wanting it to be brought in a way that's honoring to what's going on with their mind and their soul. And so that led me to create an online support group, which I actually just started. And it's really exciting because I can still facilitate things and bring women together so that they don't have to do it alone, so that they can hear that another mom had a wild, intrusive thought too. And just having
Mhm.
that feeling of, oh, like you've had that kind of thought. And I know you would never want to hurt your baby and you're terrified
Yeah.
by that thought. And I'm
Yeah.
not the only one that's had an intrusive thought. And you're also a believer and you love the Lord and you believe scripture and you're still anxious,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
that can
Yeah.
make anyone's shoulders drop.
Mhm.
Well, the thing too is I hate the idea that, just slapping a Bible verse on something and then that's, well, you just need to meditate on, Philippians 4:16. You know, and you just need to believe more. Just be still and know. No. And you're just like, well, great. Thank you. However, like in the moment, like, yeah, I get it. Like, believe me, I'm crying out
Mhm.
to God all the time. But it's just
Yeah.
like you putting a Bible verse on us does not make this situation any like more
Mhm.
like livable in aspects. You're just
Mhm.
like, because then now I feel like I'm questioning my faith. Like I don't believe enough and I'm not.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
you're like, okay, well now I'm even in a darker spiral because I feel like, okay, well now I'm losing my faith in all of this. And now what kind of person am I?
Mhm. Yeah, like, I'm like, not only am I struggling, but I'm also now a bad Christian.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
and I don't wanna go back and share with you because I feel like I'm gonna get shut down. And I think, to be fair, I think that the women that are sharing those kinds of things, I think that's what they know how to do. I think that's how they know how to encourage,
Mhm.
and they think that's the right thing to say. And I think, what I wish is that we could just normalize you don't always have to know what to say. You don't
Yeah.
have to be the one with the answer. Sometimes it's just being. Sometimes it's just sitting there and being like, "Oh, that's really hard. I'm really sorry with that." Either I know what that's and that sucks, or I don't know what that's, but I can imagine how that would suck for you.
Mhm.
And I think like when scripture is used well, it can be really encouraging. But one of the ways that I try to integrate faith into the group and also just in my counseling practice too is when we know the Lord, like when we know his like attributes and his character, that brings so much peace. Being close to him and knowing
Mhm.
who he is and
Mhm.
being reminded of who he is. And I think sometimes like cultural Christianity will kind of like do the opposite. It'll go toward the behavior of here's what you can do in the context of Christianity rather
Mhm.
than just being like, hey, but do you remember that the Lord is faithful, right? Like that is who he is. He does not know how to be loyal to anyone but himself and his plan. He's faithful. That feels a lot different and a lot more anchoring than you just need to pray more or you just need to have more faith. That's it.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, that is
Yeah,
a
that's
very good
good.
point because it puts all the pressure on you versus and you're well, if you know God is good, like let's go through all the ways that God is good, and then
Mhm.
you're none of that has anything to do with me and how I show up for today, which
It's
praise the
true.
Lord. None of that's on
Mhm.
me because
Yeah.
like he's still going to be good. He's still going to be faithful. He's still
Mhm.
going to be loving. I
Mhm.
don't have to do anything for all that to happen versus like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
well, maybe you should just wake up 5 minutes before you need to nurse the baby and then have your quiet time. And you're like, oh, great. Now I need to add that to my list. So
That's
like,
so true. That I know. And I think and that happens a lot on social media where, again, I think it's well-intending moms are like,
Yeah.
yes, my baby wakes up 3 times in the night, but golly, I'm still up at 5 a.m. and I'm reading my Bible and you should too. I think if that works for her, I think that's great. I think she should do that. I
right.
don't know.
But
Go
you're
ahead.
shoving it down our throats and and here, let's be honest, how long did it take you to take that picture of the baby just right, your Bible, your talking mug, and the highlighters, and let's make sure that the verse is, like, perfectly
Yeah.
focused where you spent
Mhm.
20 minutes for that Instagram picture, and
Mhm.
but I love the Lord, and I look at my baby, oh my god, we are
Mhm.
just so good together, and you're like, did you read the second paragraph on that page? Because 'Cause I'm pretty sure you didn't. But, yeah, that's just my own personal clearly, I have
I
an
hear
issue with
you.
that. Like,
I I hear you. It's not what was meant to be inspiring is not inspiring. It feels shameful and feels like
Yeah.
there's a right way to spend time with the Lord. And that's the other part of it too is like something that I've suggested to several moms that I've done myself that I continue to do myself. Listen to scripture. Play it on your phone
Mhm.
and be driving down the road and listen to
That's
it.
Tori's jam.
that is
You
my
know?
jam. I totally did the Bible recap all
Yeah.
through last year, and I listened to the entire thing. I
Yeah.
didn't like I think it is incredible, and I was just talking to we have a Bible study with some our mom friends with our daughters,
Cool.
and we were talking about the Bible recap, and they're like, "Yeah, I mean, like 20 minutes a day is great." And I was like, they're like, "I just don't know if" I'm like, "Listen to it." And they're like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
but then I get
Mhm.
distracted." I'm like, "Doesn't matter. If I mean, I can absolutely get distracted for 15 minutes and I can start thinking about the things that I need to do or whatever, but then
Mhm.
it brings me back in
Yeah.
for a moment, and I'm like, listening to 5 minutes is better than, "You know what? Since I'm just gonna get distracted anyway and I need to pay attention while I'm listening, I'm just not gonna do it at all because 'cause I'm gonna put
Yeah.
off time." No, just have the words in the background and just playing. I mean,
Right.
you
Mhm.
will get so much more out of it than not doing it at all. So,
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah. So I'm like, let's do some more of that. Let's do some more listening to scripture, taking the pressure off for it to look a certain way. When
Yeah.
you're in the thick of it, like you said, with the hormones and the changes, and even if things are going quote unquote well, there's not an underlying anxiety disorder or whatever, it's still freaking hard. Like it just is.
Mhm.
mhm.
Why do we need to make it harder on ourselves, you know?
What advice do you have for mamas? And this would have been me. I was not someone who I didn't have anxiety, I didn't have depression. Like I
Mhm.
was someone that felt pretty even keel until I had
Mhm.
kids.
Yeah.
And you had kind of talked about it before where like all of a sudden there's that, your nervous system is heightened, oh,
Mhm.
there's, this could happen or that could happen. And I was someone who had 4 kids in 6 years. So for
Mhm.
8 years, I was either pregnant or breastfeeding. And it was just one of
Yeah.
those where I don't know that I ever recovered from that,
Mhm.
to be honest. And I don't know if that's why I, had Hashimoto's or why I
Mhm.
went through menopause early. Like I don't know those answers, but it's very
Mhm.
interesting that you're speaking to the the awareness of, oh, it just kind of shows up because that's how it was for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I guess like what the question with what advice do I have for women who didn't experience it before, but all of a
Hmm.
sudden the onset is
Yeah.
just really clear. I
Yeah.
think number one is knowing that you're not broken and there's nothing like quote unquote wrong with you. And I say that with the caveat of you didn't do anything to like cause this. This is not
Hmm.
commentary on who you are as a mom, who you are as a believer. This does happen sometimes. And I think
Hmm.
sometimes, especially as women, we're so quick to go into fix it mode. Well, like how can I figure out so that I can avoid? But I
Yeah.
think part of it is like accepting, like, this is where I'm at right now. This doesn't mean this is where I'm gonna be forever. This doesn't mean this is my
Mhm.
motherhood journey, but this is where I'm at right now. And it is not only okay, it is necessary for me to get help and support right where I am, whatever
Mhm.
that looks like. That's what makes me be able to be a great mom to my baby,
Yeah.
because I'll see a lot of women push off, right, their own support or their own help. I continue to like soldier on. Let me just get through the next day,
Mhm.
because they feel like they're abandoning, their baby by asking their husband to stay with the baby later, or getting a babysitter, asking for help. Feels really hard and
Yeah.
feels really bad, especially take care of yourself. You just feel like,
Right.
it's not worth it. But these things rarely just get better on their own, right? And
Mhm.
that's the hard truth, I think, that a lot of people don't want to believe, but it is. It compounds. And I'll see women
Mhm.
sometimes who are like 2, 3 years postpartum, but they still have all the symptoms of postpartum anxiety, right? As if the baby were like 6 or 7 months old.
Mhm.
So with that okay, so that's what I was going to ask. If that's a
Mhm.
if how like for the mom that I'm like, look, I have a 3-year-old or,
Yeah.
I just sent my kid to kindergarten, but I still feel like a lot of times like the heaviness and the anxiety and the worrisome like and again, like I can't, like the mom that is so paranoid that, nobody else has watched their kid ever. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
I'm like, no, that's not how God made us,
Mhm.
like, I
Yeah.
mean, your child is supposed to be with other people too. Like it is
Yes.
okay.
Mhm.
But like,
Yeah.
so how would you, for a mom that is past that, like, I'm not nursing anymore and I'm sending
Mhm.
my kid off to kindergarten, but I still feel some of these feelings. What would you say to her?
Yeah. I think the first thing I would say to her is like, I'm so sorry that you have been struggling with this alone for so long. That has got to have been so hard and really
Yeah.
lonely and really awful. Because again, I think she probably doesn't have a lot of people that have met her in that space of like where she is. Watching other friends who have seemed to adapt or just have seemed to move on in their motherhood journey, and she still very much feels stuck. And probably what has happened for her is she probably did have postpartum anxiety or postpartum depression or postpartum OCD. She probably met the criteria for one of those things. And then after her body maybe physically left the postpartum period, her nervous system did not get that memo. Her nervous system was on overdrive for good reason, but it was doing its job well for too long without a break, which then probably led into like full blown generalized anxiety disorder, some other thing here, maybe panic disorder that happens a ton, where the panic attacks start to come. And so I think the other thing I would say to her is this is also like curable. Like, we can treat this. There are things that we can
Mhm.
do to work through this. This doesn't have to be just how it is for you, but it does take, I think, the awareness of being like, I'm not okay. And that's okay, but I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so I'm going to
Mhm.
have to do some things different in order to care for myself and attune to myself. And I think what a lot of moms sometimes don't realize is that their effort is to, like, take care of their child and put their child, as top of priority. I'm never gonna leave them with anybody else. I'm gonna know everything that they consume all the time and make all their food, do all the
Right.
things. But if mom's unwell, truly everyone else is gonna be unwell. Like, it is what it
Mhm.
is. And what I would say to her is, I bet your baby or your child, your kindergartner, would probably want a mom who has a more settled nervous system, who's calm in her spirit, over having the carrots chopped a certain way,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you know?
What are some things that we can do? Are there little exercises that just, I mean, on a regular basis that even as, Tracy and I are well past the postpartum age or stage, but like things to calm the nervous system on a rate, like when we're starting to feel that anxiety and that, because there are days that we're just wanting to pull our hair out, when
Yeah.
you've got
Yeah.
4 kids sick at home or whatever, or if it's a snow day and you've got kids home, they're like, I
Yeah.
need you to go to school. What are
Totally.
some ways that we can just kind of help reset our nervous system, if anything, just for a moment?
Yes, that's a great question. It's gonna be a lot more simple than you would think. So a lot of the times, like, people will pull out these really cool sound like, sexy sounding mental health tools, right? But I'm like, when someone is in fight or flight, they don't have time for that. They don't have time to think through all the steps and all the things. They don't do that thing, and then they end up losing their mind, right?
Yeah.
So one of my favorite go-tos is placing your hand wherever you're feeling tension on your body. You feel like your chest is tight, you feel like your shoulders are up to your ears, if you feel like your back is super tight, place your hand wherever that is and just wait for something to shift and settle. It could be like the weight of your hand, feeling like kind of like the warmth, like, okay, that feels a little different. You be noticing your shoulders are dropping just a tad bit. That means you've taken one step closer. Then you start with deep breathing in through your nose, hold it, slowly let it out through your mouth. I would do that 2, 3 times. And then if you feel like you can go a little bit further, breathe in for 4, hold it, out for 8.
Okay.
If you still feel like you are on the verge of losing it or still need a minute, you can go into the bathroom, splash some cold water on your face, gently tap it with a towel lightly. And I say lightly because sometimes when you're in that state, you're like, it's like rocking. Don't do that.
Just throwing it
Yeah,
on yourself. Yes.
not helpful. Splash some cold water on your face very gently, dab with a paper towel, go back to the breathing, and then come back. That basically tells your body and your animal brain in the back, I'm safe. There's no emergency. There's no tiger chasing me. I'm probably stressed. I'm probably a little burnt out. What do I need actually? Am I hungry? Am I
Mhm.
tired? Do I need like a talking break? Do I need everybody to stop talking for 5 minutes so I can like kind of center myself? But a lot of times people will start with those kind of things, but their body's so dysregulated, they're not in a space to receive it. So hand gently over your tension, deep breathing, cold water, then drink through what you need.
I love
That's,
all those. I
yeah.
do a lot of those with my kids. I have a couple that have anxiety, and I was actually
Yeah.
teaching yesterday. One of my daughter and her friend was in the car, and they'd been playing basketball, and she was like, coughing, and because she'd been sick, and I was like, "You
Yeah.
need to calm down." And she's like, "It's hard to take deep breaths," and I was like, "Okay." So we
Mhm.
do the one where we take your three fingers
Uh-huh.
on your wrist, and then you drop to the bottom one, and then you do it in
Mhm.
circles, and
Mhm.
within like 10 to 30 seconds you're yawning. And that
Mhm.
one, because so she doesn't think about her breathing because she was having a coughing fit. And so it
Yeah,
worked. And
yeah.
so then her and her friend were doing them. And then I was like one through the other one. And I was like, well, you got your butterfly hugs and
Yeah.
and so we were doing them yesterday. I was like, it was funny that you asked that question, Tori, because I was like,
Yeah.
just doing it yesterday.
Oh, I love that. Those are common for you too, like the butterfly hugs and they're
Hmm.
done for kids. But I mean, gosh, I mean, it's the same thing,
Yeah.
right? When I talk about putting
Right.
your hand where you have the
Yep.
tension, it's the same thing.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah, good.
For my daughter, and that was one thing that she had gone through, was the tap on the one hand and then tap on the
Mhm.
other hand. And because she has OCD, it's to get the brain going all the way over and not just to the middle and keep looping on the one
Mhm.
side. And so that was just to like go back and forth. And so that was something that we did years ago. And we would
Right.
put like a bean bag and then we'd
Yeah.
throw it, I got all those tricks. Now I just need to use them all the time.
Tracy, you need to start using them, Tracy.
I do actually. I do use them.
Amazing. I
Yeah.
love it.
Awesome. Well, I think this is so incredibly helpful. Just one, if anything, to remind moms they're not crazy and they're not
Mhm.
alone. And
Mhm.
each part of this journey, God is with you and that
Mhm.
there is help available, but also there's a community available too. And it's just
Mhm.
a matter of you have to acknowledge it first and go, I'm not okay. And that's
Yeah.
okay. But now I need to address it and get some help somewhere. And again, maybe
Mhm.
it's something small to begin with, but like having a community like yours or finding a telehealth appointment to somebody to talk. These are
Yes.
all totally normal
Mhm.
things. And,
Mhm.
anxiety, like you said, we've got to quit normalizing it. That's just the way things are. And,
Right.
you just feel like your entire world, like once you have a kid, like you just feel like your entire heart's been ripped out of your chest and now on your sleep. You know what I mean? And good
Yeah.
luck, 'cause the whole world, you're just gonna feel that raw all the time. No, actually you're not. Um,
Mhm.
that is not true. So I just, but again, moms don't talk about it because
Mhm.
it's that
Mhm.
weird, like, oh, I'm not enjoying my stage. Do I tell anybody that? Or
Mhm.
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 Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and the worst is when you hear that a mom, like, is. You're like, "How are you doing?" She's like, "Oh, great. Things are great." Whether she is or not, whether she's lying or not. Just hearing that, it doesn't really
Mhm.
invite, vulnerability, right, from the other end.
Exactly.
yes,
Yes.
yes. Now
Well,
for you,
and
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and that goes on with just anything around like, oh, are you breastfeeding? Oh, formula, or I mean, and that's been going on for for century, probably. I don't know, maybe not a century, a few
Long
decades.
time.
A long time, long time.
Yeah, but it's
Well,
true. It's like the competition in it, and you're like, no, if you're formula feeding, great, and I can still be struggling breastfeeding, great. The conversations just you're uncomfortable sometimes, and they shouldn't be. It should be an open, safe place to talk about it.
Mhm.
and can we
Totally.
just also like peek behind the curtains here and tell every mom that whatever you ask how long it took longer than you think it did. And like, for example, when a mom says, "Oh, my baby's sleeping 10 hours through the night." No, they're not. Okay. They're probably sleeping about 7.5, and that mom is rounding up to 10. Okay. So, like, don't feel bad and that she's not actually getting 10 minutes. Also, when you're like, "Oh my God, but how was your labor?" "Oh, mine was like, I had to push for 24 hours. Oh, I had to go for 48." No, she didn't. Okay. She's probably counting all of the other times at the hospital. Like, no, take about half of it off and, like, you're fine. It wasn't as long as that, So just know that's the comparison thing that it drives me nuts. I'm like, you're there, or my baby started walking at 7 months. No, they didn't. Like, you no, no, we're just a genius prodigy. No, you're not. Like,
You're gonna
guys,
get videos of babies walking at 7 months.
right? Like,
Right.
mine did. Well, and then I'm gonna go AI. That's AI, and I'm just yeah, whatever.
Tori, I think one of the I don't know why all them do this, but I think one of the reasons why moms feel the need to exaggerate sometimes is because they want the validation and how they feel. Like there's this
Hmm.
fear that there's going to be this mismatch and it just felt really hard. But I guess, it wasn't as extreme as you had it. And that's another reason why I think moms struggle to seek support is because they're like, well, she had a crazy traumatic birth. Mine was only like mildly traumatic. Or, her breastfeeding journey was like awful. And like mine was just, borderline terrible. And there's like this constant measuring stick. And
Hmm.
so I do wonder if part of it is like, I so want to validate why I feel the way I do that I'm going to add on a couple things here, not intentionally trying to lie, but want to
But
justify it.
well, yeah, just about, and where they're just making it sound bad, like
Hmm.
because I'm suffering through this. It's worth it that my baby is walking now at 7 months. And you're like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like, and I look back as, of a mom of a 11-year-old and a 12-year-old now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'll just like the comparison of just like worrying about if my baby's doing this in the right amount of time or whatever. Like,
Hmm.
it steals all the little moments. Oh, well, they didn't turn over fast enough and they didn't crawl at this much because you're so
Yeah.
worried about that milestone. And again, like having the baby that sleeps through the night. Oh, well, she started sleeping through the months at 6 weeks. You're like, okay, shut up. You know what I mean? That's
She's not better at all.
yeah, and it's not. Like, and she only sleeps through the night once every 4 days. So really, really, like, let's not even count that. But I just don't let those moments steal the joy from
Yeah.
those moments because you start to panic and worry, like, my baby's not doing all the things, or I'm not doing enough in we're not doing tummy
I was
time
gonna
enough.
say, I think it goes back to the mom's feelings of not doing enough or not being
Yeah.
enough or not. Yeah, I think it's really
Yep.
that more or less than worrying about the child's milestones. It's like, did you
Right.
not get him up? Spend
Right.
enough
Because your
time
kid's
sitting with them
achievement,
on the tripod, and they were
you, yes, your kids
Right.
achieve, you attach yourself to your kids'
Mhm.
achievements, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but
Hmm.
it's just a
And that's
matter of like,
fueled by the anxiety.
yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah.
all goes back.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyways, well, thank you so much, Emma, for this lovely conversation. It's certainly brought some memories to my mind of all of
Some
the
good
small,
and some bad.
I'm good to not crying in the bathroom, on the floor. Like, oh my God, is this it? No,
Not
those
alone
moments,
in that.
not those moments. Or my favorite is holding the towel when you're breastfeeding for the first time because in your mouth because it hurts so bad. Nobody tells you how
Mhm.
bad nursing hurts in the beginning.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
It's
those
terrible.
moments. So, but I hope this encourages the moms that are listening, or just know that, like, okay, at least I'm not her. So you're welcome. But so there's that. But
Oh,
where can
God.
our listeners find you, Emma, if they want to share your information or seek out your support group? Where can they find you?
Yeah. So I am on Instagram at Joyful Mama Mental Wellness. Also on TikTok, same handle. And then there's a link on Instagram that has more information about the support group and how to join it. It's completely virtual. So anyone, anywhere can join. We meet twice a month for the live group calls with weekly reflections that I send out that you can read at your own pace. And then there's a growing library of on demand videos, really short videos, similar to what we talked through today for practical coping skills that moms can use when they feel like they have the margin to consume that. Because that's the other hard part is sometimes like you need the
Yeah.
tool, but you just don't have the bandwidth to absorb it. So that way it just
Mhm.
lives there and they can always access it when they need it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much. I so appreciate it. And then
Yeah.
until next time, housewives, bye.
Bye. Bye. Thanks, guys.